everybody. This is the Brushy Creek Mud Disc Golf Course, but everybody just calls it Cat Hollow. Especially up on the north side of town, this is definitely one of the most popular courses north of Austin. Over the last 5 years, it's probably the course that I've played the most. In terms of difficulty, I would say this is an intermediate course. Rec players can have fun here, and of course, advanced and open players can enjoy themselves also. But in terms of challenge, this is really kind of squarely in the intermediate zone. There's a mix of left and right-handed holes. There's some open holes. There's a little bit of woods, even a little bit of elevation. So there's a little bit of everything. For a neighborhood course, it's definitely better than you would expect it to be, and it continues to be one of the most popular courses in the Austin area. Okay, hole one. This is a blind shot right off the bat, left to right. Most people are going to take a forehand here. I actually think it might shape better for a backhand anhyzer. I'm lefty, so I can just spike hyzer in there. You see the tree right there on the left side really prevents a lot of birdies. This one's a good birdie though, if you get it. Hole 2 is a tunnel shot. 186 feet straight ahead with a putter or a mid-range. It's not far, but it's also an easy gap to miss. You'll see some people tomahawk or thumber over the top to get out of the trees. Once you get out of the gap, there's a little hill that you'll need to crest to access the basket. If you go deep or a little bit on the left, you can be in danger of running down the other side of the hill, so you got to be a little careful. Right out of the gate on hole 3, the bushes on the right side are going to cause some problems. This is the first elevation shot. It's a little bit downhill, but a relatively routine right-hand backhand shot. This hole's definitely gettable for anyone that can throw 300 feet. Left-handed players like me are either going to have to throw a forehand, or you're going to have to bomb a big spike hyzer over the tree on the left side, which is actually how I play this hole. You just have to be careful that you don't go over the fence on the other side. Alright, hole 4 is another blind shot, but this time just because you have to get over this hill so you can't actually see the basket from the tee box. It's relatively long at 375 feet, so it takes a little bit more of an advanced arm to be able to reach it in one shot, but it's definitely reachable. There's nothing really on the left or the right side to prevent you from getting to the basket if you can throw that far, and you kind of know where you're aiming at. So kind of a bonus birdie if you can get it, but definitely gettable if you can, of course, throw that far. Okay, hole 5, 585 feet, making it by far the longest hole on this course, and it's also a par 4. I have never personally seen anyone to this hole. It would take a monster drive left to right and probably some kind of a throw-in. But as a left-handed player, I can bomb about 400 feet out there, and you'll see there's a very, very well-placed bush in the middle of the fairway. A max distance shot will probably put you out somewhere to the left of that bush. I actually prefer a placement shot to the right of that bush. I feel like it makes the approach a little easier. Also be careful on the drive. I've seen a lot of right-hand backhand players throw their disc over the fence if there's a house directly in front of the tee box. Hole 6 is back in the woods. This is a really straightforward right to left, kind of gentle hyzer. It is a tunnel shot, so you have to be a little careful. But you don't have to put much on it. Just pump a mid-range out there and let it hook up, and you should be in good shape. For the lefties, I throw a backhand turnover here, but a forehand would work just as well if you feel confident throwing straight. Hole 7 is going to be left to right. So if you're right-handed, it sets up pretty well for a turnover. For lefties, it's a little bit pinched, but not terrible. I prefer to throw a hyzer flip here, but a sweeping left to right hyzer works really well also. Holes 6 and 7 are definitely very gettable birdies. Alright, hole 8 is actually a very pretty hole, I think. Again, it's kind of a tunnel shot through the woods, and it plays long, straight, right to left. So you need to pump probably a fairway driver pretty far out there and get it to hook up at the very end to have a look at birdie. I don't know anyone else who does this, but since I'm left-handed and I can throw pretty far, I actually hyzer flip a turn over the left side of the trees, and I've actually birdied it several times that way. So playing over the trees is an option on the left side. Hole 9 is also a bit of a tunnel shot, although at 219 feet, not quite as long as hole 8 was. And also, you have a little bit of headroom to work with on either side. I've actually aced this hole with a thumber before, but just because the way it opens up after the initial gap, you have a few options of how you want to get to the basket. Hole 10 is actually another par 4 at 498 feet, but really it's a pretty soft par 4. I almost always 3 this hole. The drive is a little bit more open on the left side for distance, but it's still plenty accessible for right-handed players. Once you get out into the open field, it's pretty open for everybody. I think left-handed players have a slight advantage because they can crash their disc into the side of the hill to make their putt. I have never two'd this hole before. It's on my bucket list. I actually outdrove it one time because it's a little bit downhill. So one of these days I'll get it. Hole 11 starts up with a little bit of elevation, 393 feet. You're basically throwing around the tree that's in front of the tee box. It's a little easier to go around the left side than the right side, so if you have any hope of reaching the basket in one shot, you're probably going to need to go around the left side. I can 2 this hole, but it's a mostly max power shot for me. Hole 12 is interesting because again it's another downhill shot, and it starts out in the open, but it finishes in a gap just barely on the edge of the woods. At 321 feet downhill, most intermediate players should be able to reach that in one, but this shot is really a lot more about placement. I can't really forehand that far accurately, so I throw a big lefty turnover on this shot. Hole 13 is very straightforward for a left-handed player. It's just a gentle hyzer all the way down. I've aced this hole before a couple times. For right-handed player, it's going to be a gentle turnover. Nothing really in the way. Occasionally you'll have a crosswind to contend with, but it's an extremely gettable hole. Fun story about this hole. I once embedded my disc into the power lines on the left side just above the basket. Hole 14 is another hole that plays a little better left to right. It's only 213 feet, and it's another blind hole. I've seen people thumber this. I've seen people throw forehands. I've seen people go just hyzer across the right side. There are a lot of options because there's not really much blocking you from the top. There is a very well-placed bush right in front of the basket that catches a lot of discs. Hole 15 is interesting just because there's so much in the way. It's only 204 feet. Again, so you can thumber this, tomahawk, spike hyzer over the right or left. There's a little bit more of a regular traditional hyzer line around the left side, but not much. The bushes on the right side are really well placed. They eat a lot of discs. Hole 16 is surprisingly difficult considering it's only 207 feet, but it's a very specific, gentle right-handed hyzer line or a very well-crafted left-handed turnover line. But the fairway is pretty narrow, and a lot of people will make mistakes on this hole. The trees are also tall enough that trying to go over the top isn't really an option, if you want to birdie it anyway. Hole 17 is the last of the 3 holes that I have never gotten a 2 on before. There is a right-hand backhand hyzer flip option that goes over the right tree that someone could just bomb it all the way out there to the basket. But most people, that's not an option. And this is really a relatively difficult drive to set up a careful approach to a putt that's on a peninsula that can often turn into a death putt. So this is a great hole. It's worth noting, by the way, that this is also the practice basket, so be careful. Okay, hole 18, 222 feet. This is again a blind shot, and it's pretty well protected by a clump of trees. So you're pretty much just going to be aiming for that clump of trees that you see off in the distance on the left side, and chances are you'll put something in there. It's a pretty gettable birdie. Hit the change from the tee box on this hole one time. My buddy and I were jumping around like crazy and got up there, find out it was a splash out. All right, that was the Cat Hollow Disc Golf Course. If you're ever in Round Rock, Austin area, it's definitely worth your time. Like I said, especially for players in the amateur divisions, this is an excellent course to be exposed to a variety of different kinds of shots, but without an outrageous level of difficulty. And if you want to keep seeing more videos like this, feel free to like and subscribe.